You already know that in order to lose fat, you must be in a caloric deficit, right? That you need to take in less energy than what your body expends, and by doing so, your body must use its stored body fat as energy. Now, with that said, one of the biggest mistakes that I see a lot of people make when going on a diet is that they're losing way too much total body weight and not just fat. And this means that they are losing muscle mass as well. Now, fortunately, this problem is very easy to solve, and it's done by optimizing the most important thing for fat loss first, which is your caloric deficit. So, make sure you watch to the end of this video, because I'm about to learn you my number one strategy when it comes to optimizing your caloric deficit. Coming up. Okay, so the pure definition of fat loss specifically means that you lose fat and not just weight, as losing body weight in most cases includes muscle mass as well. And when it comes to achieving a ripped physique that's both lean and muscular, it's very important that you preserve your muscle mass as you are losing fat, because if you're not, then you risk end up looking skinny or perhaps even skinny fat once your cut is over. And I'm pretty sure that's not what you want. So, with that said, let's look at the importance of setting up your caloric deficit correct when it comes to getting a ripped physique. Now, I'm sure that you have heard the usual recommendations, which are that you should eat enough protein and also strength train in order to keep your muscle mass during a cut. Well, even though these recommendations are true, your protein intake and strength training are still not the most important factor for preserving muscle mass when dieting. In fact, what's most important is your rate of weight loss. Because here's the thing, your caloric intake, which is the factor deciding weight loss, always takes precedence above everything else when it comes to making changes to your physique, as is demonstrated in this pyramid. As you can see, calorie balance is at the bottom of the pyramid, making it the most important factor. And then at second place you have your macronutrients and strength training, which shares the same tier. This essentially tells us that no matter how much protein you eat and how well you train, if you lose weight too fast, you will lose muscle mass. And this is the first reason why you want to set up an optimal caloric deficit, to make sure that you preserve your muscle mass when dieting down to a low body fat percentage. Okay, so the second reason why you want to set up an optimal caloric deficit would be to make sure you lose fat as quickly and effectively as possible. Because truth is, being in a caloric deficit sucks. It's much better and more enjoyable to be over with it as quickly as possible, so that you can rock an awesome physique sooner rather than later, and or go back to focus on building muscle again, this time at a lower body fat percentage instead. Okay, so now that you know why you should set up an optimal caloric deficit in order to lose fat, let's actually look at how to set it up. In order to quickly and effectively lose body fat while also preserving all your hard-earned muscle mass, the most optimal way to set up your caloric deficit is accordingly to your body fat percentage. And we will look at why this is in a moment, but before doing so, let's first get started with step 1, which is to estimate your body fat percentage. Now, estimating your body fat percentage dead on is pretty much impossible to do without dying and ending up at the morgue. And that's definitely not an option, I hope. In fact, not even the best body fat percentage tools in the world, such as DEXA scans, bod pods, and calipers, and so on, can pull this off 100%. Luckily though, in order to set up an optimal caloric deficit for fat loss, you only need to know which range of body fat that you're in. So getting an estimation will be good enough. And there's one tool that can do this easily and conveniently, and it's also surprisingly accurate for most people, with a standard error deviation of only ±3%. This tool is called the US Navy Body Fat Percentage Formula, which for males look like this. Now, this looks like an awful amount of math, right? And I couldn't agree more, so that's why you can find a link to the Iron Build Fitness Body Fat Percentage Calculator down in the description. Now, there is one drawback of this formula, which is that it doesn't work well for all people. Individuals who genetically store more of their fat on their arms and legs will get an estimation that's way lower than what their body fat percentage actually is. So if you know that you store most of your fat on these areas, then the next best method to estimate your body fat percentage with would be by using comparison pictures. All body fat percentages has somewhat of a certain look to them. So here's a picture displaying the different body fat percentages, which you can use to compare yourself with. Now sure, comparing yourself to someone else isn't going to be completely accurate either, but as I just mentioned, all you want is to find which range of body fat that you're in. And these pictures should at least give you an idea of which range that is. Okay, so let's move on to step 2, which is to now actually set up your caloric deficit based on your body fat percentage. Okay, so you know roughly which body fat percentage range you are in. Now it's time to set up your caloric deficit based on that range. Now, the main reason why we want to set up your caloric deficit accordingly to your body fat percentage instead of body weight, like it's usually done, is because there's a theoretical limit to how much fat that can be released from your fat stores in one day. Where any additional weight lost above this limit will be muscle mass, no matter how high the protein intake is. And research has shown that this limit is inversely proportional to how lean we are, meaning that the leaner we get, the smaller the deficit must be to ensure muscle retention. Now, people that are a lot smarter than me, like trainer and blogger Andy Morgan, have experienced by working with hundreds of clients that the optimal rate of weight loss should not be based on body weight, but on the following body fat percentage ranges. As you can see in this chart, depending on which body fat percentage range you are in, if you want to lose fat as quickly as possible while making sure you spare your muscle mass, then you should follow these respective fat loss targets per week. So for example, let's say that you estimated yourself to be somewhere in the 15 to 20% body fat range. This would mean that you can potentially lose 0.45 to 0.7 kilos or 1 to 1.5 pounds of total body weight per week without risking muscle loss. Now, exactly which rate of weight loss you should choose in this range should first and foremost be determined by what you think you will adhere best to. Since losing 0.7 kilos will be tougher than losing 0.45 kilos per week. Secondly, if you are closer to 20% body fat, then you would be more safe aiming for the higher number, both when it comes to muscle retention and adherence. And vice versa if you believe that you are closer to 15%. So for this example, let's say that you choose to go with a number dead in the middle, which would be 0.6 kilos of weight loss per week. Now, having 0.6 kilos in mind, here's how to set up your caloric deficit. Number 1, find out your maintenance calories, known as TDEE. Here's a maintenance calories formula that I like to use, as it works very well for finding a preliminary number, and it's also very easy to use. Just pause the video while you calculate your maintenance calories. Okay, are you done calculating? Great! Now let's say, for the sake of this example, that you calculated your maintenance calories to be 2,800 per day. You now got an estimation that you need to eat 2,800 calories per day to maintain your current physique. But you want to lose fat, don't you? So let's move on to number 2, which is to find out your caloric deficit numbers. And here's how you do that. Again, just pause the video and follow the information to calculate your deficit numbers. So for this example, in order to lose 0.6 kg per week, you need to eat at a 600 calorie deficit per day. And 2,800 calories, which was your maintenance, minus 600 calories equals 2,200 calories per day. This daily caloric intake will ensure that you lose fat quickly, but not too quickly so that it causes muscle loss and other unpleasantries. Okay, now the final step, which is an extremely important one, is to slow down your rate of fat loss as you get leaner over time. So let's look at how to do that now. So let's say that you, in this example, weigh 80 kilos or 175 pounds as you start your cut. This means that you will go from around 18% body fat down to 15% body fat in 4 weeks by losing 0.6 kgs per week. This means that after 4 weeks, you have now entered a new body fat percentage bracket and should ideally slow down your rate of weight loss. Now, there are many ways to slow down your caloric deficit, but I have found a way that works extremely well. And no, I am not exaggerating. The strategy is to, over time, implement more and more refeeds as you get leaner, and in this way you reduce your caloric deficit. This is a great strategy because using refeeds to slow down your rate of weight loss over time as you get leaner comes with a bunch of advantages. Now, you've probably heard about refeed days before, right? But just to refresh your memory, these are days where you eat at a caloric maintenance or slightly above, just to get a break from being in a caloric deficit. Now, when it comes to refeed days, Research has shown that just one day at maintenance doesn't provide that much positive effects on a physiological level, but it do, however, on a psychological level. This was shown when one group of researchers sent out a computer-based survey to a group of people with the following question. What would you enjoy most? 7 days of straight dieting on 1500 calories per day, or 6 days on 1300 calories with 1 day at 2700 calories on the last day of the week? These two options will result in the same weekly caloric intake, which is way more important than the daily caloric intake. The results was that nearly all the subjects chose the second option, simply because they believed that 1500 calories and 1300 calories was roughly equally sucky. But that 1 day at maintenance where they could enjoy having more food seemed like a very enjoyable break and trade-off. Okay, so one refeed day per week is going to be beneficial for most people on a psychological level. But what about the negative physiological adaptations caused by being in a caloric deficit, such as metabolic slowdown, glycogen depletion, and hormonal disruption? Well, it's actually been shown that longer refeed periods between 2 to 3 consecutive days will be beneficial when it comes to reversing some of the negative physiological adaptations as well. Where one study by Derlwanger et al. Found that 3 days of refeeding at maintenance actually reversed metabolic slowdown by increasing total daily energy expenditure. This effect seemed to start already at day 2 of the 3-day refeed as well. Also, in another study by Olson et al., they found that by having at least a 48-hour refeed, they could actually reverse the effects of hormonal imbalances that are created during a caloric deficit. For males, these imbalances typically means a lower testosterone to cortisol ratio, and by having at least 2 consecutive refeed days per week, your testosterone levels will be overall better throughout the cutting phase. And finally, returning to maintenance for a few days will also replenish your glycogen stores, which often gets depleted by being in a caloric deficit. And replenishing your glycogen stores has been shown by this meta-analysis to improve your performance in the gym, which will make you preserve more muscle mass during your cut. So, as you can see, stacking refeeds on top of each other as you are getting leaner over time seems like a great way to effectively slow down your rate of weight loss, while you simultaneously get some of the positive mental and physiological benefits of consecutive refeeds as well. Okay, so now that you know the benefits that adding refeeds on top of each other can have, let's now look at how to actually slow down your caloric deficit by using refeeds. Okay, so step 1 is going to be to choose your number of refeeds per week accordingly to your body fat percentage. And here are the amount of refeeds per week that I have found work best both for myself and for my clients. As you can see in this chart, the number of refeeds per week increases as you get leaner over time. Now, before looking at the huge convenience of this, let's quickly cover step 2, which is to recount your caloric deficit to fit your number of low days and maintenance days. So let's continue on with the same example that we have been using throughout this video, where you started at 80 kilos, had 18% body fat, and also had a daily caloric intake calculated to 2,200 per day, which should have you lose 0.6 kgs per week. And as you can see in the chart, since you in this example are between 15 to 20% body fat, I recommend only 1 refeed day per week to start off with. This is simply because when a male is closer to 20% body fat, they are very far from essential levels, which means that a caloric deficit won't weigh down so heavy on them, so more refeed days won't be necessary yet. And with that said, here are the math to recalculate your caloric deficit numbers, to in this example fit your 6 low days and 1 refeed day. And you know the drill, just pause the video to do the math. Okay, so finally let's look at step 3, which is to now reduce your caloric deficit simply by taking 1 more refeed day accordingly to your new body fat percentage bracket. Okay, so after 4 weeks you reach 15% body fat, and time has come to slow down your rate of weight loss to avoid losing muscle mass and or experience other unpleasantries caused by losing weight too fast at a lower body fat percentage. And here's the power of this approach. Instead of reducing your caloric deficit by eating less on all of your days, you are smart and want the positive benefits on metabolism, hormonal balance, and glycogen replenishment. And as you know by now, you get this by adding another refeed day at maintenance next to your already existing one.
You see, by doing this, you just reduced your caloric deficit while simultaneously reversing some of the negative physiological adaptations likely caused by the deficit as well. All of this while you get 2 whole days in a row to enjoy more food. Now, isn't that awesome? All you have to do now is repeat this process each time you get into a new body fat percentage bracket. And this is the power of consecutive refeeds. In fact, I believe this to be the most powerful strategy when it comes to getting lean effectively and enjoyably. Why? Because by doing it, you will reduce your caloric deficit slowly over time by taking breaks at maintenance more often. And this is definitely key for making fat loss both more effective and effortless. What's most powerful though is that you will continue adding refeeds until you are at the point where you are close to maintenance calories on all of your days, while also being ripped at the same time. When you are approaching the 10% body fat mark, you are going to be at maintenance calories 3 to 4 days per week. And this will make the other 3 to 4 days go by so fast. And it also will feel very easy because you know there will be a 3 to 4 day break coming up very soon. So in order to get a lean and ripped beach body, I definitely think this is the best strategy. Because by having more refeeds in a row as you approach that single digit body fat, you actually allow your body to recover and adapt to a lower body fat percentage as you are working your way down, which will make it easier for you to sustain a more ripped physique, likely year round if you so choose to. Okay, so that's it guys. If you liked the video, make sure you hit the like button. And if you have any questions, just make sure to ask them in the comment section. And also don't forget to subscribe for more videos coming your way every Wednesday. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye.